So, hello to everyone today. And so, in the previous video, I decided to show a little bit about my project I'm working on right now in my company. So, in this section, in this video, I'm not trying to explain how works how and what works how. That is why it will be just a representation of just the presentation of my working routine, or maybe just a code routine that I write in my company. So I just want to apologize in advance that may some kind of noise which will make disturbing in this video section. That is why I just want apologize in advance for them. So I'm going to record this video partially, so I will combine them all later, and then after combining I will post it in YouTube. So that is why if there is any noise, that will be a reason that to make you disturb. So that is why I just want you know that some kind of noises are here. I just want to make apologies for them in advance. That is why. So the project I'm working on right now in my company is the project that calls AveraPos Cloud. So if you remember, if you watch my previous video, just previous video, not all the previous ones, just the previous video, I told that I'm going to try to show all the code, all the necessary. I got a permission to show, I was allowed to show this project. I got a permission from my company whether I can show all of you my code or not. They said that yes, you can show, but not hold the code, because it's all about the privacy of the company. So there is why. So this project is a Russian one, but especially it's not the Russian, it's Tajikistan's one, because we are CIC countries, they speak in Russian. That is why we have to develop in Russian language, because it's much more clear, much more understandable, rather than our national language, native language, I mean. So that is why that's a project that I'm working on right now. So in the purpose of keeping the privacy of our company, in order to keep the privacy, the rules of our company, I had to just move some kind of places here in order to not unfold all the credentials that I have right now. That is why I will move this in a side, so I will show how it works. That was the first screen. So I will write down the code here. So it is the second screen after that, typing the code of the. So my project works like in this way. Every company that we have, every, like, maybe the manufacturers, or maybe the little companies, I would say, they work with us. They said that we have clients and they have to do something with this specific application. So they will order specific product for the company or for the manufacturer. And manufacturer, after preparing the products, manufacturer will deliver specific products to their clients. So that is why this project is all about that. So it works in two, I would say, in two user mode. The first one is just the client, and the second one is just the users, manufacturers, I would say. So you could enter to this application in two, as I said, users, clients, employee, and user. So just the clients. So there is a specific things that I've hidden some codes right now, but I will uncomment them and I will try to show how it works. So in the privacy, as I said, in order to keep the rules of our country, I will write down all the necessary things, and I will show the second screen. So I will enter as a user. So this application is just for the testing, but even though it's for testing, I have to. They said that you have to hide all the credentials from the user in order to keep the privacy. So you could understand me. So, so this is the main screen. It's it's all about that I'm showing you right now. It's the code that's already been compiled for the web and posted to the Firebase via Firebase. So it's a simple one. You have a specific product. You will add that products to the card. You will change the prices if you want, as you wish. I would say, for example, yeah. You can change it however you want, or like this one. So it's the web one, and the actual code that I committed last time. It's not already. It's not posted. It's not compiled or maybe deployed already. That is why just the previous code. It's not the fresh code, I would say. So you have a specific place. You have just a place that outside that can in this place you can write down, or maybe just search for your product. You can search by the barcode in order to add directly, like this one. So it's categories. You can find your product by categories. So you can add, you can change. So you can like this one and save. You can select discounts, I mean. So you can select a client which is ordering, maybe which is buying this thing. So you have it in depth. You have to write down. So there is a Russian translation right now, but I will try to show you the English one if you are not understanding what's happening here. If you are a person who knows English only, not the Russian one, I will compile it later for iPhones. So it shows only, I guess, the English language. My application is I want to mention that my application shows two languages. It depends on the phone's device's language. If you select it as English, maybe English speaker from the settings, English settings, yeah. So it shows only in English. If you select it in Russian, it will show the Russian ones. But there's some kind of pitfalls that I have right now. You will notice them all. It's not right now. I just didn't write all the translation in my application, so that is why I'm trying to do that right now in this, not in this video section, of course, but later I will do that. So what I'm showing, this is the last thing that you can pay for. So the servers works very, I would say, clear here. If you don't have any quantity in your warehouse, I would say, so this one will not finish the invoice. So it says that in order to finish your invoice, you have to make a supply in advance, or maybe first of all. So then you can do just this. Why? So right now the backend is, I guess, there's some kind of messages status code that server may respond with. Were not written the proper way, I would say, right now. So that is why some kind of messages that server may respond, as you see, like these ones. It's all about the mistakes from backend one, the person who writes the backend, I would say. So we have to solve them all first of all. So there is another screen, as I said. It shows all the this is the last thing that we made here, like, so you can select your person here. So it's the last invoice that we made here. So there is a place that you can find your person. Maybe there's anybody that has no. Yeah, that is what I wanted to say. So the project is like working like this one. It's payments here. You can confirm the payment, you can cancel the payment, you can see what's going on here, some kind of. So I mean that this application runs for all platforms, but recently I was dealing with the problems on Windows. I don't know why. It's all about, I guess, that I read a lot of articles, a lot of Stack or Overflow articles that say that, and the reason that your application is not compiling properly in Windows, on Windows, excuse me, it's all about, it's because of that Visual Studio and C++ development key that you downloaded. So it's all about them, because I don't know why, what kind of pitfalls, what kind of rabbit holes it has under the hood, the Windows one. But the other platforms working very, I would say, very normally, like without any problem. So I could run for the web, I could run for the Linux, macOS, Android, and iOS, all of them working pretty fine, I would say. So that's all we have here. Yeah, it's such a thing that you can make information as a delivered one, so you can undo whatever you have done. So we have a button that makes changes. For example, you bought a notebook SpaceX on the one quantity, you can change it with two quantities. So if you change that, if it changes, like nothing else, or you can just delete one. So this is all about what you have said, what I've said. Also, there is a button of deletion, button of just to see what you have bought, or maybe what the client has bought, excuse me. And also there is another button which makes returns. Okay, for example, you have a specific amount of quantity that you can return. It's like backend sends to me available quantities, so using that property I can return the specific product as well. So that is what I have right now. So I'm trying to run this on Mac OS first of all, because as I said that so as I said that this application runs for almost for all platforms, but right now, as I said, I have some kind of troubles with Windows. So I'm trying to explain all the necessary things in my application and what I wanted to do. So there is the web. So I will try to run it for the Mac OS. Let's see what happens. So let's see what happens if we run application on Mac OS. So it's working pretty good. Excuse me. So that is what I have right now. So let's go and change some kind of places here and then come back. So there is not logic. There is a model permission. For now, some kind of models are. Say, I want to say this. They are commented because they're not implemented yet. That is why. So I'm trying to show you all the necessary things here. Start today. What's happening here? This one. So as I said previously, if there are any noise that will happen in this video section, I will try to stop them and record them again. So that is why I just want to bring my apologizes in advance for them. As I said previously, it takes a lot of time, right? It takes a lot of time, isn't it? To import all necessary things. I didn't prepare all of them, so excuse me, apologize for that. My apologization. Let's see. So that is how it should look like in the end of the development, I would say. So some kind of features and or I would say some kind of models are not prepared for now. So that is why our company said that for now it will be very good if you hide them for now, so they don't do any specific thing, you see it doesn't do anything. That is why you can just hide them all for now, and then maybe you do something with them. So that is why it's right now it's working on the one specific place. This one's oh, as I said, this web one now is not all the code that I wrote. It doesn't have all the code that I wrote right now. It's about the 2 3 years, excuse me, 2 or 3 days ago that I posted or maybe deployed this web. But right now it has more features than the web has. So let's add some specific products. You see that I've changed them a little bit. For example, if you add price, it will be added some specific additional information, or even you can go and change like, let's say that we have like this one. You will change the product's price. Okay, it has the warehouse price, it has a retail price, it has a, as I said, client price. For example, if you have specific amount of, if you have specific price for your warehouse, it's because of the tests. This all information that we have right now, it's all about the tests one. So that is why don't be shocked about the prices that we have right now. It's all about tests. So you have a retail price. So you have a retail price, you have a just a wholesale price and client price. So directly here you can also change the however whatever you want to get. For example, if it's the kilogram, it's the product that product type is kilogram. I don't know how to say it. It's not a item per item, or maybe it's not a piece. So that is why you can directly change the sum of your things directly here. So there is a button will be appeared here, or maybe what kind of product we have that has up to the warehouse price. For example, we have said this one. It's additional information will be appeared here. So you see, that is how it works. So it runs for all the platforms I mentioned. It runs everywhere. So what I wanted to say in this, as I said, I will stop some kind of video recording things and then record them again in order to combine them later. So if there's a noise, I've added my how it calls. It's a cooler, or what is that? The fan that which is turning around in order to make my laptop to keep it cool. I mean, so in order to fuse some other noises, so that is why I just wanted to apologize about that. So in order to fuse some kind of another noises, I did this one. So what I wanted to say, this is the code that runs for, as I said, for the Mac OS. So it's working pretty fine as I showed you in our web. So everything is working pretty good. Let's see. So all the features, all the models that you see, well, for example, this is the separated model. This is the separated model. Oh, so this is the another separated model. Let's see what's happening to the internet connection. Why it's not working? Oh, that's good. So it was just information that if you don't have any internet connection, it will pop out on a screen. It will be popped out on the screen. So in order to show the client that you have to connect to the internet connection, otherwise it will not work. Obviously it will not work because I was working. I've been working on a project that had ability to run application, maybe to had ability to make invoices, make your sales, make your whatever you want through that application. So it could work without internet connection, but it had a lot of pitfalls, a lot of so it was all about the burnout, I would say. So because I couldn't maintain it properly, because it could work without internet connection, but the main architecture of the application was just a mess, I would say. So that is why I would say that working with internet connection, everything that works with internet, is much more better than like doing locally, then sending to the server in order to make the synchronization. So that is why I would say that everything should work with internet. But what I was talking about is this is another feature, another model, I would say. And if this is another model, this is another model. So I mean that everything that you're seeing, that it's separated models. So they are not combined to each other. Everyone like makes to the request to the server. For example, this model makes to the server special requests, and it gets itself the response. This one is separated. For example, if you write down here specific customer, let's see. So it will appear only specific customer, or maybe this one. So the request that you're seeing right now, all of them are making separately, So right now, what I was trying to show you, I mean that I've already compiled the application, the specific my application on Chrome. So for the web, this is for the web. What I was trying to show you, for example, it's all about the routing. I will talk later about this routing, how it works under the hood, what it has, what it does. Okay. So what kind of logic that I have in order to keep the logic of the application, logic for the web, logic for the Mac OS, Android, whatever. So to maintain them, I mean. So there is an application that was run for the web. So you have a sales model, you have something like this one, but the main thing that you can do here, so it's all about this one. For example, if I so there is a lot of people, especially people who work in web, who know about the web development much more, just mobile application developers. I agree with them that the Flutter by default doesn't have a SEO optimization for the web, for the Flutter's web. So I agree with them, but however, I just want to mention for all those web developers that Flutter has, but it was not turned on by default for the web, because Flutter doesn't work directly with HTML, some kind of sort of things. So it has a semantic layer. I guess that a lot of platforms, a lot of SDKs, like frameworks, have semantics things in order to help people, like disabled people, people are deaf, people who are like disabled, who are handicapped, or maybe I don't know how to express them. What I mean, express my thoughts. But this one, so Flutter doesn't have by default SEO optimization. That is why the Google search engines or maybe the Yandex ones can see directly HTML. So there is another, Flutter's framework that exists there. I don't use them much of the time because you have to write all the HTML code there. I don't know that, but that is why you have to spend, or maybe you have to make a time in order to learn. Because I've because I've forgotten all the necessary information about the HTML. I used the HTML, JavaScript once a lot of years ago, but right now I don't remember them all. So what I was talking about, this Flutter doesn't have SEO optimization, but however, it has a routing. Every framework that exists out there, So doesn't matter Kotlin, or maybe there's a Swift that I don't know much more about them, but Flutter has. I know much more about the Flutter. I just want to confess about that. So you have a specific road, and when you want to navigate to the specific road, so look, the first thing that you have maybe just noticed when you enter the application for the first time, it by default it appears as a main selected section, or maybe model, I don't know. But if you go to the specific this model, but the other ones are not implemented yet, as I said already. I just wanted to show the architecture, how the app works under the hood, for example. It was my reason to show in my application. So there is a sales model. If you go and refresh that specific model, see what happens. It goes to that specific model, So that is the code that I written. Maybe it's a little bit complicated for some people, for some developers, but however, it works. It works pretty fine. So even though if you go to this section and directly write down like all sales, all sales, it will navigate you, route you to the specific route, But the pop-ups that may appear here, it's not related to the routing, If you refresh this one, the pop-up will not appear. So it's good, even though so it's the web navigation was implemented as well. Because the application can be run for all the platforms. You have to just implement the specific routing things to application for your web as well. Is the other application if you're maintaining them, So that is what I wanted to show. So I have to deal with it as well. So there is specific filters, I just want to show you something that was done by a sick person. I don't know. Let's see. I don't know who are working with what here. Yeah, this one. So there is the project for the web. I wanted to show the routing here. Routing is working pretty fine here. You see the initialization process working here properly. So what is the reason that I'm showing the initialization process here? Because make the person who is entering into the application just not show empty blank, maybe a blank screen. They have to see something, you know. So there is a settings section that you can synchronize. There's a loading, synchronize all the necessary things. So you can go out from your application. So all the necessary things are working here. So that was run for you for their. This is for Mac OS. I will come back. No, some most of the times I develop only using Mac OS because it's also it's Dart VM. You know, it's all about their. I don't know why you have to whenever the application, the mobile software engineer who works with specific applications, he has to check out all the platforms as well. You know. Otherwise, I don't know, maybe your application, maybe your company, even though it's they develop only for Android or whatever, even though using that one, you can just shrink this one, you know, and use as an application, you know. So what I want to do. So it's working as a application here. So it's all about your, how to say, it's all about your wish. It's all about whatever you want to do. But the way that I'm working, that I do my job is much more the obsession. You know, I love to do my own job. That is why I check all the necessary platforms. Let's see, but it's not. Yeah, that is why the reason that I moved my screen. It's because of the privacy policy of my company. So that is why check me once again it. So so look what else wanted to show. It's the thing that you can do using. So the tablets and phones shows pretty much one thing most of the times, I would say, but the desktop ones, they show another, like these ones. It's the for tablets one, it's for desktop ones. So that is what I wanted to show. Let's once let me show once again another thing for the macOS. It's interesting, I would say. For the macOS, was it for the macOS? No, it's for the web. Or maybe. Let's see what happens. Okay. I don't remember. Let's see. Oh, that is what I wanted to tell you about. It's this pretty same thing for web and for the all the desktops. I mean, like for example, you have a little screens, yeah. Like for example, you have a tablet one. It's for tablets one. This is for desktops. But if you have a like small screen for your desktop, you can just hide this one. Hide this one and do your job, and then if you come back, if you want to go to another section, just like do like this one. So that's what I wanted to say. And let's have another thing to do. Since I've got a simulator here, I guess that the simulator uses English, maybe English translation. But as I said previously, some kind of things, some kind of places were not translated yet. So I will try. I will translate them later, but I will wait for the one for now. It's better. Let's see for the iOS. Mhm. So this is the moment that you can write for your like the code of your store, but it's translation in Russian, yeah. So I will run this application on Android, and they will see that time we will see what's going on. Got it? So this is for the iOS, which will run for iOS. It works pretty same as the Mac OS one. You see, so it has the let me add the product that I have in Firehouse first. So look, my application works in this way that the if the product or order item has a specific price type, it will change it. Otherwise, it will not change like this one. Or you can go and change directly from here, like this one. The new type of price will be appear here on top of the thing. So like this one, I mean. So that is what I wanted to show in iOS. Let's try to run my application in English so that I have a like this one, I guess. Let's run our application once again in emulator, Android emulator, and I will try to show you once something very interesting. I would say very interesting. Okay, what is this? That's what I want to say. This my application, as I wanted to I want to mention that my application has ability to scan a barcodes. That is why I will show you the feature of scanning barcodes here. This is there. I will show you all my pub spec dependencies that I use for this project, and then I will talk about that mobile scanner dependency that helps me to scan the barcodes, the EAN 13 type of barcodes. So that is, as I said, the English version of my application. So let's try to run it as well. So just the how to say that, it's just the version of testing version of our, it's the backend providing only testing version. That is why don't worry about it, this I'm writing the necessary thing. But even though my company said that you have to keep the privacy, I'm following that rules, so excuse me for that in advance. So this is the English version, as I said. You can go to the all sales. This is their the type of the mobile type of, like, you can return, you can edit. For example, yeah, this is the edition. So there is another thing that I wanted to show. Excuse me. So this is the return. If you go to the cart, there's available for return information. Some kind of things are not how to say that, were not translated yet, but I will try to translate them all. So return invoice, you can also edit the return invoice as well. For example, you have returned only one, you can just change them and say that I will return two quantities. So there is a version of, how to say that, the English version. But the most important thing that I wanted to show you is the sales system and the quantity one. For example, let's say that our application, or maybe the person who is working in a specific store, maybe they don't have the the, the type of, I don't know how to say that, it's kind of technological thing that helps to scan the barcodes. Yeah, if what if they don't have that? For example, this application that I have written in Flutter helps them to scan the barcode and directly with scanning one add the product to the cart. But it's the implementation, it's very easy, I would say. It's not a complicated. So maybe there are a lot of people who have worked with this kind of features, with this kind of features. So there is a barcode scanner that I have. Let's see. So for example, you can add a what is that? I don't know. We have two type of barcodes here. Let's see. We have added this one and this one. So look, we will go a little bit further and see. You see? It's adding. For example, if you have, let's go come to upper, so up, 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 up. You can select the customer. You can get any kind of discounts, and then finish the invoice. That is how it works. For example, the last one, okay, we will go and try to edit this one. We have added two these ones. Yeah, you can go and directly do some specific thing, or maybe up, up, up. So it has a sound, I guess. Let me check. Maybe you have here, maybe you will not, but let's check it out. I don't know why. I guess that it has a beep sound. It's maybe I'm recording the screen. Maybe it's because of that. It's not. The sound is not appearing. It's because of that, I guess. Maybe. But it has a beep sound whenever you scan a barcode and it finds a specific product in cart. Yeah, not in cart, from the products. It will make a beep sound, but I don't know. It's my guess. It's all about the screen recording, I guess. So that is how it works. This is how it works, my dears. So let's close it maybe here. Let's check it out and see the سياسيين. It's better that let's run for the higher simulator, and then let me explain everything here. So let's start. Let me start from the pub spec YAML that we have. Okay, we'll say that there's a lot of things here. Maybe the GitHub, which is private repository, some kind of information here. So the environment, the SDK, the Flutter and Dart version that I'm using that for the project. But actually, I would say that my Flutter version is not. I guess that it's what is that? It's the Dart 10.4, so 8.5 Flutter version. So it doesn't affect all. It's just information that the project can be run, and the SDK, which is upper than 3.10.1 maybe. But if you how to say that, for example, at a specific amount of time you haven't developed an application, and after 1 year maybe you will come back and you will see that your application's SDK environment is about this specific version, rather than you can just take a look to your dependency and see what is specific version of your application, because this information is just saying that you can run your application above this version. But for example, there's a lot of other versions that you can, I don't know, there are a lot of Flutter versions. You can pick one of them to the FVM. So I mean that just information that is why you have to, if you haven't been developing on the specific project for a while and you came back with another version of Flutter, it means that you have to pick the proper version. You can take a look to your dependencies maybe, and depending on them choose the Flutter to the FVM if your actual Flutter version it's not compatible with the project's one. So that is why. So workspace. So first of all, before going to the pub spec, I want to mention that these projects that I'm working right now, it has a template. Even though I know everything about this project, what kind of pitfalls, what kind of doesn't have pitfalls exactly, definitely. But however, I know everything about this project, like what kind of files, what kind of folders, what kind of file, what it does, what. So all the template that I've got here, it's all from this one. It's it's the template that I've generated from Plugfox, especially. Exactly, this is the great guide who does great things. I mean it's the template was gotten from here, like you can see here. Not all the implementation data, but I've got the template from this guy. I will try to put the links, all the necessary things down below in description, so you could find. And this template that I'm using was a little bit changed. So it some kind of databases information, some database creation, some kind of stuff was changed by me, because I don't understand the code the guy who writes, because he has a lot of good experience that I don't understand right now. But after a time, in a while, maybe in the future, I will try to I don't know, maybe understand him, but the things that he does sometimes are not clear at all. So we have another, as I said, the template that you can use maybe if you want. It's all about you, whatever you do maybe. So I mean that I've changed some kind of database places here, tables maybe. For example, you could take a look that is the logic that I've written using Drift, but this guy did specific logic in another way, much more better, I guess, because he's a very great guy. He has got a lot of experience that I've got. That is why I would say his code much more better, but it was not clear for me. That is why I've changed a little bit places. So thanks a lot for this guy. I mean, so I wanted to say that already my application was published. Yeah, recently we published this one. We are just on a development stage right now. So people can use this one, especially clients that I've told you. For example, they can put their order for the specific manufacturers. They can deliver them. So it is for macOS, for the, as I said, for the application, for the iPhones, for the iPads. So it's can be downloaded as well for the macOS. For example, right now I can download this for macOS. So that's why it's okay. So let's go further. That is why the guy who I use who wrote this template. Right now I use his template, and his template had the workspaces. Maybe you have heard about the monorepos. Some specific code which is not related for your overall code, but this code the package it uses as a packages. For example, if I go to my packages section, you can see that there is a UI, there's a shaders, there is a shimmers, all the necessary thing. For example, this UI section, it's all about the shaders, it's all about the shimmers in Flutter. So if you go and check out the main shimmer package for your Flutter, it has a speedfalls. But I will not say that this is a bad solution, but the guy who made it here, in his template, it uses the shaders and it takes less optimization. It makes much more optimization. I mean it doesn't the junks will not appear in your application, or what is that, the freezes, in order to make your application slower, so there is a package UI. That's all about the shimmers, some specific tools for your UI. Let's see what has components, charts. It has a layout, it has a theme, colors of your application that you can use. So it's a packages. So it's a dependencies we have got here, like the Flutter web plugins uses the Flutter itself uses the SDK of Flutter. Localization also it's a Flutter's one. Intel any version which is compatible for the Flutter version. So Octopus, if you watch my previous video, I mentioned about the Octopus. Octopus is such a thing, as I said, it's all about this routing. And meta JSON annotations, it's just for annotations. If you writing any class, maybe on top of it you can write additional annotations using meta JSON annotations also, like this one. It's all about utilities of the Flutter and Dart. For example, the Eric's Dart, it's all about streams. And most of the packages that you're seeing, that it's all from the guy who calls Blackfox. Like this one, he's a great guy. He put his great experience, or maybe a great contribution for the Flutter community. He's a great guy. As always, I will always say good things about him. That is why. So some kind of packages was added from him, like this platform, and what is that? The Octopus one. This logger one also is one. The control state management also is one. So let's continue. It's collection. It's all about the utilities of the Flutter that you can use. Eric's Dart, as you know, it's all about streams. It's all about Eric's reactive development. I mean, so the collection for the lists, for all the collection that you have additional functions. It adds additional functions. Async, the pass, the convert, the simple packages. For the desktop, for managing your screens, or maybe what is that? Specific platform initialization for your application. Control is a state management, which is exactly does the blocks one. For example, you have a block Flutter, yeah. Have a block package. It's a great package. I don't complain nothing. I complain nothing about this one. But there is a control. Which was made by that guy, Blackfox, as I said. The main reason between main reason that I'm using that control one, it's all about the state machine, you know, the Flutter block. The Flutter block is a package, but block is a pattern. It's a how to say that? Yeah, pattern that you can use. It's the state machine, you know, state machine, and that you have for example, this kind of what is that? Is there a code? So the code that you write with events and states, this kind of thing was made much more easier in this control. It follows the same rules as block, for example, but as I said, it was made much more easier. It's because of that you can add your own functions. It's similar to the qubit one, but qubit doesn't resolve the problem of race condition, but this one solved that using this handle one. So that is why I'm using this one. You can spend less time in order to create your own block, but in block you will write, if you are using any some kind of extensions that helps you out to write your own to write the block code, like blocks piece of code quickly instead of you. But this one, as I said, does the same thing. Like it has a state, mutable state. It has a the race condition, like using these ones. So it's all about the stream. It's all about the race condition. It's all about the Flutter block. It's pretty does the same thing as a Flutter block. So let's go. I use, for example, there are a lot of problems. There's a lot of problems, especially especially for the local databases. I use two type of local databases. The first one is key value database, like shared preferences, and the drift one. Okay, so why I'm using drift? It's because of that our application has a lot of data to save, like products one. There are a lot of 10,000 to 20,000 or maybe 30,000 items, products that should be saved locally in databases, and you can't handle them using, I don't know, shared preference. As I always say, that it's all about the small data that you have to save. But drift one, it's a very big data that you have to save them, that you have to maybe, I don't know, query them. It's drift, as you know, uses the SQLite under the hood, and that's all I wanted to say. So the main reason that I'm not using Hive database, Flutter. Was it Hive? Was it Hive? It's not maintainable at all. It's not. 4 years ago, 4 years ago. Years ago. So what I wanted to say by this one, I mean that Hive, maybe a lot of people there maybe have seen about Hive. I remember once that when I started my development journey, I used to use this kind of local database all the time, but after a specific moment, after a specific duration of time period, I mean, I understood that after reading articles, after following the proper people, the good people, I understood that this kind of things are not such a good idea to use. So I remember that the header, like here, they had their benchmark package, benchmark picture that you could see and say that, whoa, this package faster than SQLite. But in reality, I would say actually the SQLite, the drift, for example, SQLite Flutter, this is what I want to say. Flutter drift. So Flutter drift, the drift that I use, it's maintainable package. 42 days ago was made a new update. So for this drift, Flutter uses SQLite under the hood. Okay, like this one, two packages. What is this? I come to drift. It also has a. Okay, what I want to say about this one, Hive is a package maybe you can use for the small piece of data. Okay, it's good for this kind of, but you have a shared preferences. Shared preference also does his own thing. Great. He's great on what he does. So the Flutter, this Flutter also, this package Hive. The main pitfall of this Hive is that they said that you can use this as a database, but actually not. If there's a 3,000, 30,000, 50,000 of products that you have to save locally, you know what happens with your application? It's exactly, it will exit. It will be terminated immediately. So you have to remember that Hive package, it's a small data. You can use them for the small data. What if Flutter, it's, as I said, it's not maintainable anymore. What if your Flutter package, Flutter application that you are writing right now, it will be new. There will be new package of your application, new version of your, there will be new version of your Flutter, and this package will not be maintained, or maybe maintained anymore. What will happen? You will stay in a specific version of the application using FVM, Flutter, which is Flutter, getting better day by day. It will stay on a specific version of a Flutter application. Flutter, yes. That is why there's a lot of pitfalls. I mean, so Hive. What is the main bad thing that Hive does? It's the limited. Let's say it's tables, limited classes that you can. About it's all about 255 objects can be like used as a date as a table, but also Hive saves its own data in memory and also in storage. What I want to say, the storage, for example, storage means it's the data of your the specific storage that you have in your application, in your not application, in your phone, for example. Okay, there is a 20 gigabytes of free space that you can save. Okay, that's good, but it also saves your data directly in your memory. What it means, for example, it's all about 20,000 products in your application, and when you all of a sudden when you want to load all of these products, all of a sudden, I mean, application will terminate it, because every application, every processor, like, allocates specific amount of data, amount of memory for your application, and it says that it's getting much more higher than it should be. It will be terminated. That is why Hive uses all the memory in this one. But the Flutter drift that I'm talking about, it uses SQLite under the hood, and the SQLite will be saved in a storage, yes. But the piece of data that will get there immediately, okay, immediately when you want, it immediately will not be saved in a memory. For example, you have a 30,000 products in your local database in Drift, it will be saved in a storage, and whenever you want to get that piece of data, it's like when you want to get about but with pagination, like 20 items per page, when you want to get it, will be saved only 20 items in your memory. So that is why I'm talking about. So I use the Drift and shared preference as a local database. I use HTTP as a networking. I didn't write the main implementation of my, how to say that, of my client that makes request to the server. It's all about the guy that I mentioned, like FlagFox. He wrote all this necessary thing. That is why, as I said, I used that code as a template, like this one. This guy already has a logic of API client that make request to the server, like this one, like post, get, all the necessary thing. But if you want to add additional things, you can do your own thing. I mean, so I mean that my code, which is here, has much more like additional code here that doesn't have his template, this guy's template. So let's go and check another HTTP Cupertino items. Two-dimensional scrollables. It was about their screen that I showed you. Let me run this once again on macOS. So I will say that what is that? Scrollable position leads. It's all about their animation to scroll, or maybe to a specific item. Yes, scroll to a specific item with animation. Let me see what is that. Let me show you. For example, two-dimensional. What is that? This package. This package is with this one, like two-dimensional. Scrollable position list is this one. Let me show you what this one. You see, it's animating. Like if you are in the end of your something somewhere, if you go and add specific amount of quantity into your order, it will like animate your list immediately. If you go down like this one, it will animate right there, animate your list, I mean. So scrollable position list for animation, lucide, or I don't know how to spell this one, but this is for the icons, which is uses their how to say that, not the images but their like fonts one. The images, the icons was written with the fonts, like icon fonts. So there is a phone web, some kind of configuration things for the web. Firebase core, I use some kind of analytics, I use Crashlytics, I use Firebase, some kind of project. So in order to watch your analytics, what's happening in your application, who is entering where, I use Firebase Analytics. For Firebase Crashlytics, I use, for now, I want to mention that our application like Mac OS or maybe web, all other platforms instead of iOS and Android, we don't right now, we don't collect crashes for them, but we are going to add Sentry for our application. If it will be used for all the platforms, we are going to use Sentry, but for now it's necessary to use only Firebase Crashlytics for Android and iOS. I will show you the implementation of them. So the freeze annotation, I'm using the freeze in order to generate some specific code that I don't want to generate myself because it takes a lot of time. I use UID for this, some kind of part of products and order items. Intel utils for their internationalizing, excuse me, internet connection checker plus. It was for this one. If you turn on your application, it will be pop up. It's using that specific. This package mobile scanner, as I showed you the implementation of scanning using the Android. I showed you it will be it works for all platforms, but mobile scanner, let's check whether it works for all for mobile scanner. So mobile scanner under the hood uses the Google's ML kits, like barcode scanner, okay? ML kit barcode scanner. Google services it uses. So that's the platform that I'm using. That's the package that I'm using. It's for scanning your code. Like it works for Android, iOS, macOS, and web as well, using the camera, but not for the Windows and Linux. I don't know why. It's not necessary because there is a lot of like scanning gadgets out there that can help you directly. For example, this kind of thing, it's always focus all the time. For example, you can do something like this one, something like this one. It will work all the time, you know. Even though you add new type of products, this focus will be available here all the time. So just audio, as I said, when you're scan something and you will find the product, in order to add them in cart, it will sound a beep sound, you know. So there is a just audio I use. So there is a developer dependencies, development dependencies like integration, Flutter, build runner for the generating code, drift dev for the development of the drift. So I use some kind of assets, shaders for the shimmer. Fonts, my font that I'm using in my application is the Inter one. So I used my fonts like this one, put the bold for all necessary things. Flutter Intel, Flutter generation configuration. So that's what I wanted to say here. So I told you about my pub spec YAML, I guess. So right now I will try to show you my initialization process of my application. So there is the initialization process. Let's shut it down. So there is the initialization process of my application. So it has a platforms, some kind of models. So you may ask that what kind of dependency injection that you're using in your applications, because we haven't seen any dependency like packages in your application like these ones, you know. For example, you have a dependency injection. Most of the times people can differ. Most of the time people can differ difference between, I mean, dependency injection, single what is that, singletons, service locators, maybe. It's all about the IOC. They can differ, I mean. So if you go, for example, there's a get it package, I guess, yeah. It's all about the service locator, even though they have written that this is single or what is that? Service locators. It's all about the service locator, you know. And when you are using service locator, you have to be much more serious about them, because if you do something inappropriate way, excuse me, there will be a lot of pitfalls. Whenever you are using a specific kind of packages, you have to be serious about them, I mean. So get it, it's all about the service locator, not the dependency injection. So there's a lot of things like get it, I guess there's another one. What was that? Injectable from Google's Flutter injectable. Yeah. There's the Google's one, I guess. It uses get it under the hood. So, and the project that I wrote here, it uses a I won't say it, the pure man's DI, you know, that the DI that was written without a package, with using inherited widgets, so to pass the data down to the widget tree, element tree. So that is what I'm talking about. So let me show the initialization process of my application. So first of all, there is an initialization. No, let's go to the main one. So there is a main, my main.dart. So it does some specific code like initialization process, initialize app. I will show you what it does. So initialization process, it's different for the specific platform, you know. For example, there is an initialization app of my application. If you go to our initialization, you will see that my application initialize app differently depending on what kind of platform I have. Let's see. I'm using this. So I'm using initialization. So main.dart goes and initialize app, calls the initialization. If you are noticed that in my application in the web, if I go here, you will see that there is a initialization process, like some kind of circular progress. If you see, like this one, yeah, like this one. So it is this because of this one. So this code shows initialization. It's not the splash screen. It's initialization progress bar. I mean, it shows how many dependencies were initialized before starting your app. So then this kind of information will be run directly to their here. Okay, there's kind of how to say that, it's kind of initialization of the application. So this ones runs and initializes all the dependencies here, and it has a timeout if my application does not initialize its dependencies about in 7 minutes. It will time out and it will fall shows another splash screen, I mean. So there is a dependency initialization. It's all about, if you see there, it will be some kind of necessary parameters that I passed to the function. So depending on what happens in my initialization process, I will use these functions as something happened. For example, I will call them and I will say to the initialization main.dart, like this one on error, to show another, like app error, for example, run another things if something goes wrong. So initialization application will initialize dependencies. It's another file. It's like initialize dependencies. It was the first one, like, okay, initialize. It will call another function which initialize dependency. I will show you what it does. So let's go here now. For now, like, you have to this function which are not necessary at all, I would say, but these ones are necessary. Like my initialization app, before running the dependencies initialization, call the exceptions. What it does, it catches all the Flutter errors, I would say. So if you are if you have learned about the state machine, as I said, in a control or maybe Flutter block, if you take a look to my previous videos in a Flutter section, I have some kind of several section about the Flutter block. I have a section to write I write an application to do a simple application calls, in order to show you how to like write proper code, how to write code properly. So the state machine says that all the code that you have should not be propagated out of itself. For example, you have a state machine like Flutter block, control, doesn't matter. All the necessary code, if there will be any kind of errors or exception that happen inside the state machine, Flutter block or maybe controller, Flutter block should capture that specific error and should send that error to the Crashlytics or somewhere else. That is why this section, Flutter and Platform Dispatcher, it's all about the Flutter. If specific error happens in your Flutter, this error should be sent to the Crashlytics saying that the Flutter happened. But much of the times, this one should not happen. Like, it's all about maybe 10%, 5% your application, or full of application that for example, your application is 100%, about 5% that errors may happen in your application should happen in Flutter side, but not all the time. And for example, what kind of error you may ask? It's that error. What was that? For example, you haven't added a expanded and text goes beyond the screen, and this kind of error happens. So this Flutter error is all about that. It will be sent to the Sentry I will show the error util later, what it does. So you have a platform dispatcher. It's all about the exceptions or errors that may happen in a platform side. In Android, for example, you have a specific package that integrates with Android, iOS, with specific specific Swift code, maybe. If the package that you're using was written very bad, consider that platform dispatcher most of the times will not capture errors from the platforms. It's all about the Flutter. We can't do anything with it. That is why you have to pick up the proper package before using them. You have to know about them more before using them. So let's continue. Let's see what we have got. Okay, let's talk about the error util that I've got here. No. We will take a look for this one later. Let's go to the dependency initialization. So dependency initialization has specific steps. For example, how many dependencies you will add, it depends on all the dependencies you have added in your code. So this is just a type def. It will return the dependencies all the time. It takes the dependencies and initialize something. So this is all the platform, all the things that I will initialize. For example, let's take a look what we have here. You see, it's about the 10 more steps that we have to initialize our dependencies in our application. But most developers out there, they said the Flutter doesn't have dependency injection, or is it proper dependency injection, but I will say that they don't know anything. So what I wanted to say that this is the VR initialization process, like we initialize Firebase, like this one. We initialize the platform pre-initialization, like if you go to this here, like this one, this is package platform initialization. This is the main package. It depends, as I said, depends on what kind of platform you are using. For example, if you are using Dart VM, it's all about the Windows, Linux, Mac OS, Android, iOS, but not the web. Instead of web, but it checks whether if I'm running in JavaScript or maybe in web, it will use another file. For example, it's just by default. If another thing, it will use this. So this is the settings. So depending on these settings, will be used these two files. So GS, it's all about the settings of your website. Okay. So setting your URL strategy, like I'm using this one from this one package of the web. Okay. So doing some another settings, I don't know what are they doing, but this one removes this hashtag from the path. So this is initialization for your website, and this is initialization for your VM. As I said, VM includes iOS, virtual machine. Virtual machine is such a thing that runs your code. Runs your Dart code, compiles your Dart code to the binary code. So Dart VM has all the platforms instead of web. So it checks whether it's Android or iOS. It runs the mobile initialization. I had some kind of initialization here in order to remove the the battery percents in your application when you're running application, but I removed that. It's not necessary for now, but this one is sets the mobile application like Android and iOS to the portrait, like phone, directly phone, not like landscape, like portrait one. So if it's not an Android and iOS, it will run the desktop initialization. Desktop initialization. So I'm using the package, as I said, let me show you. For the web, I'm using this one, initializations, but for the what is that? For the desktops, I'm using this one for like window manager and other things. So I'm using here set movable, specific initialization for my desktop applications. It works for all the platforms, like for all desktops, Linux, MacOS, Windows. So it depends on what platform I'm running. If I'm running on web, it will call this platform initialization. If I'm running on VMs, it will run this one. So it depends on, for example, these platform initializations. It will depending on this file, it checks what should I run. Okay. So the platform the initialization app metadata. So I will not show all the necessary things here, but I will show other things like API client, API client. Okay. What is that? The database. Where is the where is the database initialization? Connect to database. Let's my connection to the database. So it will create a dependency like database to my dependencies, and whenever I want to use my database, I will using this dependency that I have, I will use directly there. So I have an API client. So I have another dependencies like, for example, sales repository. Let's check sales repository implementation, or maybe there's a products, I guess. Products. Where's products? Products. So if I go, this product repository uses some inside several features. So in order to not create same repository all the time, I created a dependency. So I will integrate, I will set my necessary things right inside that dependency, and I will take all the necessary data from the dependency. I will show the code. So initialization steps, it will take how many dependencies we have, and depending on every dependency initialization, it will dependency and lock the initialization process here. So there is all things that we have got here. If you are very good developer, you will take a look and you will see what's going on here. So dependency with this one, dependency with this one, dependency object that we have is this one. So we are all the dependency that we have is this one. This is for testing. So this is dependencies. If you watch my previous videos, you will notice that I have told in a Flutter app development, like to do development application, in my YouTube channel there's a video that I've told about dependencies, how to work with them. I mean, so there is the dependencies, all the dependencies like API client, app database, category sync controller that should be used throughout the application. You can use you can how to say it? You can initialize once, and throughout the application you can refer to these dependencies, and you can use. I will show you how to refer them. So there is an app widgets initialization, some kind of Windows scope, Octopus scope, performance overlay tool. For example, I'm running on iOS. There is no any such a thing that shows the performance overlay tool. Let's check. So there is a how to say that, there is a performance overlay showing such a thing that shows how your application runs faster or not. But this one, this is all the things that you're seeing here, like this performance overlay, this how to say that, window like some kind of drawer that appears. It's all about development mode, but all the necessary things that you're seeing will not appear on release mode. Okay, so this is the application that I have. My application, as I said, the main root that initialize all the necessary things are here. So this is a theme, my font family inter, that which was added in my spec YAML, some kind of settings of my application. This one, text scaler, it says to the application that, for example, there are a lot of disabled people. Semantics, you have to keep the rules of semantics, but if you keep them, your application will be very bad looking application. So that is why there is text scaler in your application, which says that your application should be like the text sizes of the application should be in a specific amount of, like, between 1 and 2, or for the blind people, or maybe people who don't see properly. But this one, I'm saying that my application doesn't support any semantics, so in order to keep to view the UI of my application, otherwise it will be just messed up, I mean. So there is an octopus. I'm using the octopus role router. I will tell this a little bit later. So there is a build widget that I've got here. It's a debug mode that I'm using on top of it. For example, if I run my application in another way, from debug, maybe from something, it will be showed another, for example, alpha, beta, instead of this debug. So that is all the things that I have right now. Authentication scope. It's authentication scope. It's a scope that handles the authentication of my application. So not dwell on it right now, to dwell on the code. So this is the initialization process. Oh, okay, dependency scope. So it's an inherited widget. So there's, as I said, there's a lot of people that said that Flutter doesn't support. Maybe I don't know why, or where did they get this kind of information from. I don't know why, but Flutter exactly has a dependency injection, like, well, everything about the IOC, inversion of control, I mean. But look, it's all about the pure man's DI. You have a specific class that have all the data, necessary data, and you will pass that data down to the widget tree. It's all about the dependency injection. So if you have heard about the inherited widget, I will not dwell on it. It passes data down to the widget tree. It uses my dependencies here. So if you take a look, I'm using this dependency, injecting my dependencies in the main.dart. So after initialization of my my dependencies, when it's success, it will call this function. And for example, if you go to the initialization app, when it's success, after initialization of all the dependencies, it will call the success, and success call will be what success will be called, this code. So we will get the dependencies. We will inject that through using the dependency scope inherited widget, and we will run our application like this one. So all the necessary thing here. So what I wanted to show, if our application goes wrong, it will call another how to say that, another widget that shows that something went wrong in the application. But it happens not all the time. I mean, but what is that main function? Yeah, we were in the main function. So there's a I wanted to talk about error util that logs the errors in your terminal and also sends your errors to the Crashlytics. So there is an error util that we have. Most of the times I will not send all the necessary logs to my Crashlytics. That is why I will show this captcha exception. So let me not dwell on it right now, I will tell it later. This log error is just a util that logs errors and sends your error to the Crashlytics. But error util that I have, I will tell it later, not right now. Just let me just come to this position. So what I wanted to tell you, it's about the routing that I have, routing logic. For example, if you notice that, for example, we have a routing like this one. As I said, especially in web mode, when you refresh your web using this kind of parameters and in your route path, it will directly send you to the specific screen. After initialization, it will send you to the specific screen. So the logic is in the home routing. I have a mobile routing, which is not necessary at all. It does some kind of sort of things. But the main thing that I have is all about the desktop routing. This desktop routing, it's will be created only in let's see. The subrouting will be all created only in desktop mode. For example, your pages like this one, like whole page, like desktop ones, not the phones. Okay, but the phones routing, it will be created another logic. Like I have two logics for the routing. Mobile one is not much more necessary at all. So if it's much more necessary if you are sending specific this kind of pass to your friend in order to show him what you have done, but what he has to do. For example, he clicks on the link, and through the link, mobile application will be sent to the specific screen. Will be sent to this screen. Excuse me for my English. So for the router for the desktop one, it's much more necessary. For example, it takes a look for the model that you're sending. For example, takes the arguments and sees what model we are using, and it will find this specific model from these lists. It will find that through the road name. For example, the road name is sales. It finds that, and after that, for example, in my models, for example, there is a products model. Okay, there's a products model that has a permission. Permission name is, as I said previously, in my application there's two type of users. Okay, if you go take a look to the users type, we have an identity. Two type of users, like user model and customer model. So identity, all the places that I'm entering to the application to set up specific settings, configuration in my application, I always try to use the identity. So identity represents whether user model or the customer model. When you enter the application with specific type of user, okay, user model or maybe customer model. So it depends, depending on what kind of identity it is, your application behavior will be changed. For example, some kind of specific permissions for the customers are already presented, maybe, or maybe user model doesn't have any permission instead of like these permissions, you know. So user permission will be gotten from the server, and depending on the user model, permissions will be showed in your application. So I mean that your application has two kind of like identity, or maybe if in the future, if you're adding new type of user model, it will be like. So what I was talking about that your application routing, it will find the model, and depending on the model that user should be navigated, okay, depending on that, it checks whether user which is entering to the application has any permission or not. Let me do something for you. For example, we have another system. If we go to the if we go to the policy, if we go to the users, and let me check. If I turn on, okay, if I turn on some specific permission, I've turned on this kind of permission here. For example, if I refresh that, you look, that feature that I was there sent me to another model directly. For example, look, I'm not entering, I'm not this kind of feature, that model is not appearing. If I do that, if I turn on that specific model again, and I will go back to the specific thing, it will appear. Look, you see, that's what I'm talking about. So it checks, it finds the model name, it checks the permission. If there is any permission, model will be set, otherwise it will be redirected to home. The mobile logic works directly, similar to this one, but it does some specific another permission checkings. It's not much more interesting rather than the web's one, you know. It's much more complicated, but even though all of them are working pretty fine. So there is the model of my all sales model. So what's happening here? So it's internet problems, I guess. So this routing thing, I'm using a octopus routing. It's all my routes that should be appeared in my application, like everything that I've got, and depending on the roles that I've got here, I set up all the necessary widgets, configuration widgets here. Much of them are not doesn't have any specific logic yet, but in order to keep the main rule, to keep the main logic of the application, I created the configuration widgets in advance. That's all. So I'm using, as I said in my previous videos in the YouTube, that my project uses something went wrong here. Something problems with internet, I know. So, however, we have our, what is that? Octopus, which, as I said previously, was made by that guy. Which was made by that guy. So this is the routing package I'm using. And also I wanted to show you about the authentication guard. For example, what happens if my application, okay, let me check it out once. Interesting. So, you know what? Authentication guard. I wanted to show you about the authentication guard from the Chrome. What's this then? Let's see what happens. So we have an authentication guard here. What does the authentication guard here? It's the guard that every Flutter web, or maybe doesn't matter, since that our package works for all the platforms on Android. So authentication guard works for all of them. So what does the authentication guard do? It gets the shared preferences, authentication controller, the routes that the person can go without any permission, without any checking guard, or maybe developer rules, routes that user, for example, actually in a release we don't show the developer screens. Okay, so let's check it. Is it working or not? What happens to this? I don't know what happened. Okay, let's close it for now. So developer routes, it's the routes that are allowed to go even though it's a release mode, you know. For example, in release mode we don't use the developer sectional module for the users that you're using, but you can go and navigate to the specific road without any permission, you know, without any knowing that user could go to that good road to, or maybe navigate to the specific thing. So we have a rules, we have a logic here. So it checks, this one checks the developer roles is not empty. If it's not empty and my route that I want to go is that one, this role will be added. So there is another checkings, if the local database, if the token doesn't exist, for example, if they doesn't exist, the local SD, it will be navigated to the specific route of authentication. Or maybe if you don't have tokens, if you have tokens, for example, yeah, if you don't have tokens, it will be navigated to the sign in specific route, and that's all. If you take a look of all this code that I'm showing you, it will be just clear that the all code that I've written, it's just a interesting one, I mean. So it's a middle there. So what I wanted to show you, that's all I wanted to show. That's all necessary thing about the router that I wanted to show. Router I use is Octopus. Octopus also have a lot of guards that you can deal with. So Octopus guard, you can write your own logic of your application. That, for example, if your application, let me show. So you have, if you want to go navigate here, if we go to the here to the what is that one application and clear. How to clean that? Okay, clean this one and let's see. So that's one. I cleared all the necessary thing. If I refresh this one, let's see what happens. You see, it navigated me to the specific screen. Let's do something else. Let me show you something else. For example, if I clear not the all things but the token, only token, delete this one and let's see what happens. For example, if I want to navigate to the sales system, maybe just refresh that. So after refreshing, that thing navigated us to this road. So in order to keep the privacy of my company, I just cut some specific video from my videos. So let's go inside. Excuse me. So there is the routing. It's all about the routing. It's all about the necessary things in my application that I showed you. I showed you about the initialization, router. So router state mixin is just mixin for our app initialization. Which I showed you about the inter, the media query, all the necessary things. It's all about that. So I used that as like this mixin as a helper for my routing. For example, there is a routing. I do some kind of initialization of my Octopus. Like I add authentication. This is the here authentication guard. I add authentication guard. All the roads I add here, like default road is authentication, server database authentication. All my roads are here. Default road is one. Guards, I added only one guard, but this one is not necessary for now. On error, it will be checked and will be observed through the console. Maybe you have any error in your routing, you can send them to the Crashlytics. So this helper, this router, will be added inside the material app here, like this config one. So I'm using the Flutter that localization, simple Flutter localization. It localizes, initializes all the necessary things. So right now I will try to show you my error handler. I have a util that calls error. As I showed you in initialization of my application, that there is a example. If I go to the main, what is the main? Main, yeah. For example, this error util that I've got here. So this is a util that also logs your errors in your terminal, and also this error helper also will send your error to the Crashlytics. How, you may ask? So I have two type of platform. Every time that I have to send error to a specific place, you have to deal with that properly. So that is why the Firebase Crashlytics, since the Firebase Crashlytics doesn't support some kind of platforms, like maybe, I don't know, it doesn't support the web, it doesn't support, but I've read some kind of article about that they are trying to add implementation for the web, but right now Firebase doesn't support web. Crashlytics doesn't support web. You have to use some another services in order to send your errors somewhere, like Sentry maybe, much more better. How to say that, it supports the web for the Flutter, all the platforms. So I have two kind of initialization process. So in the error util, there's an import that says that if my platform is a VM, by default it will be added to the VM one, these ones, and it checks if my library is one, instead of this one will be added to another library. But since the library has the same functions name, like if we take a look at capture exception, capture message in another file, also again capture exception and capture message. So depending on that will be used one of those functions, same function. So error util, what it does, what does it do, you may ask? It does some kind of logging error, then also there's a capture exception, as I said, and it checks, since as I said that since I'm using Firebase Crashlytics, some kind of platform doesn't work, like I don't know, Mac OS, Windows, especially Linux doesn't work there. But that is why for now I'm using only Firebase Crashlytics for the Android and iOS, or especially for the VM. I'm talking about the VM because VM supports all the platforms instead of web. Capture message, it doesn't necessary to me, because you don't have to capture logs all the time and send to the specific place. But it would be if it were Sentry, I would do that, but right now it's not necessary. So for the VMs, this side of code works, but for the GS, there is empty one for now, because I don't have any specific place to send our logs, or maybe to send our errors to a specific place. And what I wanted to say, you may say that how you are catching exceptions all the time. For example, I don't write try catches all the time for some places. Maybe even I write try catches only if I want to catch only one specific exception, do some stuff there, and that's all. To not throw it, maybe the try catching exceptions means that you want to make some actions depending on the specific exception. So otherwise, try catches are not necessary at all, because if you have any kind of, I don't know, features that may throw exceptions all the time, but with some specific place you haven't write try catches, what happens? It goes to the zones. All your Flutter code by default runs in one single zone, and it calls zone current, or what is a zone platform, I don't remember. Shortly, I mean that your code, Flutter code, by default in a Dart VM there is a zone which is runs by default, but you can work with that. That is why in this application there's one app zone which runs in your application, and every error that may happen in your application will be sent to the log error, like exception, all the necessary things. I mean, so you have an app zone runs unguarded. If you haven't write a logic to catch your exceptions, all the unhandled exceptions will come here. Excuse me, and like something like this one. So there is a log error, as I said. If you captured an exception, it will be sent to the specific services that you use depending on the platform that you are running your application. Compile your application, like if VM works this one, if JS works this one. So also, as I mentioned previously, why I'm using databases. So I'm using Drift databases, as I showed you. Drift database. So where's my database? I use Drift. There's a table like categories table, customers table, products table, users table, and database itself. Like I've added all the tables here. This necessary settings for my application depending on what is that. For the native ones, but what I wanted to mention, that the Drift ones, not Hive, not another like solution, local database solutions, works, or they don't work like Drift one, because Drift one also have a ability to share your code between, to use your databases between isolates. And also there is a web one, SQLite, awesome Drift worker JS, so it's in settings configuration for your, and there is migrations. So Flutter Drift by default has a great it has very great documentation. Drift documentation, it has a great documentation, I would say. So if you take a look and go to the migration APIs, if you go and take a look there, this migrator step-by-step helper that helps you out to like without any more suffering. I mean, write your own migrations. It has a very good documentation about the migration. So that is why the main reason that I'm choosing Drift over the other database solutions about it's all about the platform capabilities, platform supporting, I mean, support, or also the migration API. So that's it. So it's all about the memory and storage. That is why I'm using the database. So this is the generated code. It's not my code. It's a generated Drift code. So there is my code about the Drift, about the databases, some kind of necessary thing that I've told you. And what I wanted to tell you, my friend, I wanted to tell you about a About the state manager that I'm using in my application. Let's close them all. Let's talk about the state management that I'm using in my application. So I would say that a lot of state management solutions exist in Flutter community, Flutter ecosystem. But the main reason that I'm using, as I said previously, the Octopus one, the control one, excuse me, the control one, it's because of that it does the same logic as Flutter block, like block pattern. It's a block pattern, but the implementation of pattern is the Flutter block and block itself. Flutter block also has the block package inside, and there's some kind of Flutter widgets that helps us to use block itself properly. So what I'm saying that the reason that I'm using this controller, excuse me, the control, is because of that it does the same logic as block, but it takes less code to write, you know. So you could use Flutter block. It doesn't matter whether you can use this one or not. But in this application that I'm using, that I wrote this application is written using this control. It's also was written by Fox itself, the guy who I'm always talking about. That there is a good guy, there is a magnificent guy that always does the great thing, I would say, great things. Let's check whether it's working or not. Why it's not working, I don't have no idea. I have no idea why it's not working, but maybe I will check it out once again later. So that is the state management, but rather than showing how it's working, I use two kind of state managements. But look, there's a lot of people that use state management as for everything, you know. For example, state management itself should be like state machine, you know, Flutter block and other state machine solutions like control, as I mentioned. They are like state machines. The error, or maybe just everything that happens inside the state machine should happen inside the state machine. Let me show something. So we have to know about the state pattern, and also we have to know state machine. State machine. Yeah, like this one. It's a programming science, I guess. It's a computer science. Computer science. Yeah, that is what I want to tell you about. That is what I'm talking about. You have to know more about the state machine, solution, real world structure, state machine is again state machine, state pattern. So that is what I want to talk about. All sorts of state plug Fox. If we go inside the basic logic of components, you can check it out that there is a state pattern also exists. So what I want to say about about state controller, or about the state management that I have, I use two kind of. The first one is exactly the control package that I showed you, and the second one is their change notifiers itself. Look like no Flutter's change notifiers without anything. So I was talking about that a lot of people in this programming community that uses, for example, state machine is just a synchronous for the synchronous code, but the state machines like Flutter block, or maybe what is that? Every state machine that exists out there should be uh, deal like a synchronous one. So if you go and watch my previous videos, I just talked about their synchronous code. There's a lot of section about them. So that is why most of the times state machines should be worked with, especially synchronous code. For example, synchronous code most of the time synchronous code should not return an exception or maybe errors. So why should you use just a toggling a button or toggling a switcher controls? I mean the state machines. Why should you use controllers such as machines, state machines, for just toggling switches? You don't have to do that one. So that is why I saying that I use two types of state management. Like the first one is for asynchronous code. If you make a request locally or make your request to the server, if the server or maybe your client returns any exception, you can handle them. So that is why the second solution, this chain notifies for the synchronous. So if you have any data, you have to, you have a data to collect, and then after collection, you have to send them to the server. Like that is how it works. For example, just let me show what I use for my sales, for this feature. Let me show. Well, for example, there's a sales model. Okay, there's a sales model that has to user has to make a invoice, create an invoice, or maybe create an make a sale. Doesn't matter. So this is the feature. This is the sales feature. The controller is the state machine that I use. It's a synchronous one. For example, it has 4 type of states. If you ever wanted to know about how the block works inside, let's not dwell on it immediately, okay? Because let me show you another thing. Let me show you one thing. For example, let's go to our what is that? Well, the project that we have done recently, and I published that video of that specific video on YouTube. You can go and watch them all. So there is a YouTube channel, YouTube link of that video. So if you ever wonder about how to use specific feature, specific block properly, you have to know about these ones. That every owned event, that block should have only one event, own event. Block should have only one own event. Excuse me for that. But I've seen a lot of people out there that they use block in appropriate way. I would say they are doing a lot of mistakes, doing like writing their own logic to deal with the block. But actually, you have to always remember that block, like state machine control or like block and other solutions, state machine solutions, they do specific thing, like they want to prevent a race condition. So that is why block was just made for this one. Even though if you go and check the documentation of the block, that documentation is written just for explaining people how to deal with it, because in Dart there are a lot of functions and people do not know what the hell is their own events or maybe states. When they beginners count for the first time in Flutter and they check that there's a Flutter block, they don't understand that. For the first time that I've met a block for the first time in my development journey, I also didn't understand how it works under the hood. But after a couple of learning their especially about proper articles, because people blindly follow all these bloggers who don't know themselves how it works in reality, actually, I would say. So that is why you have to always remember that block should have only one on event, which prevents rest condition. And through the rest condition, you can also how to say that you can also control your own state flow. For example, let's go and check this one. There is a Flutter block concurrency, I guess. Okay, it's a concurrency that exists in Flutter community, Flutter pub there. This is all about the events. So you have only one event. You have to think that every event that which come, how they should work. For example, concurrent, maybe sequential, or startable, or droppable. So depending on this kind of events, your state flow should work. But many people do not understand that they have to create only one event, they have to create only one event, and depending on the own event, they should do something like this one. So they don't understand this one, and in reality, the reason that I'm using the control package of the Plugfolks, the maintainer of that package, is because of that. It's much more simpler, and it's much more, you have to write less code than as usual in block that you write, for example. Yeah, so there is a functions that you have, every one of them, it's similar to the qubit, the code leg, yeah, but under the hood, this handle function that we call from that state controller, it does something for us, like depending on the one sequential, if you want a sequential controller handler, or maybe droppable, or what is that, concurrent controller handler, it doesn't matter. So depending on them, this handle will work. So that is what it was the reason that I used this one. But the freeze is because of that, you will now write a lot of code in order to write just this kind of, you have to create another class, so it takes a lot of time. If you go and check this, there's a lot of there is a video on my YouTube channel that I've created this application to do this application, that's this one. So you can go check the links. So everything is written like poorly myself, I would say, without any using code generation, something like that. So that is why, in order to write like this one code without any freeze, like in order to write this kind of code without freeze, you would write similar like this one, a lot of code. So that is why I'm using freeze. But most of the developers suggest that you have to write your own code like this one, because it's much more not convenient, even though it's not convenient, but it provides us more capabilities to use your own code as you want, I mean. So that is what I'm using. This is the sales controller. It has a, so if you ever heard about the separation of concerns, there's a article, separation of concerns Flutter. So there is a separation of concerns article, and it's in documentation of Flutter. You can check it out, and you can see, or read about this one much more, just to see how it works. What is that? I mean, so separation of concerns means that every layer of your feature should do their own thing. For example, you have a controller, it's generated code, you don't have to know about this one. So you have a sales controller, okay? You have a sales controller that, for example, loads your previous code. For example, look, I have a code. If I leave this one, all the dependencies, all the configuration that I've done, especially in the sales module, will be dropped or maybe disposed. They will not be used anymore, I mean that. So let's run it once again in order I could show you what I'm talking about. So this controller every time, every 2 seconds, this controller will save my temporary saved order items. So every time when I enter to this application, to this model, excuse me, so every time when I enter to this model, this controller loads my items and provides me data. So every 2 seconds it will save, and every time when I will enter to that model, it will load my thing. So code is not necessary what I wrote there. I mean, just explaining how it works. Cleaning up the pending order, it means that every time when I want to just leave, log out from the application, and when I want to enter with another user, every time when I call this one, and it will clears their all the thing. So the reason that I'm not I'm saying that a lot of people out there using get it package, like single, what is that, single what is single, what I'm saying, I'm telling that there are a lot of people that use get it as a service locator. Yes, service locator, and they don't provide the dependencies using constructor, which is one of the most baddest, I would say one of the horrible mistakes they do. It's providing the dependencies through their, like, getting the dependencies directly in their classes, maybe, or models, so doing that, it means that their code, it's tight coupling. It should be loose coupling, but tight coupling. They don't have any, what is that? I mean that they don't have any permission when they want to, like, somehow maintain their code, flex their code, or maybe what is that? They want to somehow write another code, and prevent that specific type of implementation through the construct, but they can't do that. They have to write a lot of things. It's not testable, first of all. And writing tests doesn't mean that all the time you have to write tests, because there are a lot of companies that don't make time in order to write some specific tests. But you have to remember that you have to write some code that could be right, that you could write tests on it, so that is why it's not tight coupling. Everything that you have, like what is that, everything that you have, like something sort of other dependencies, you have to provide them to the constructor. Remember that. So that is why it's the loose coupling and high cohesion. Some specific class do, like single responsibility, it means high cohesion, and loose coupling means that you're providing your implementation of a specific interface or even classes to the constructor. In separation of consoles, it's exactly this one. Like, my controller does its own work without knowing what the implementation, what the interfaces do. So let's go to another layer, separation of consoles, remember. So there is a sales repository. If you take a look to my sales repository, it has a specific 3 functions that can be implemented by any other function, any other classes that you may create new implementation for them. So the local implementation, what it does, it takes the app database to the constructor. Okay, so I mean that providing that to the constructor, you can create the testing app database, which means you can write your own, like, mock them, and then provide your mocking data to the constructor, like something like this one. So they save the order locally, it gets the pending order, and then clears the pending order if there is something specific thing exists. So you can see that is a simplest code, excuse me. So that's how it works. So with models I have discount, like several type of discounts, the percentage, the amount discount, maybe but right now I just made the implementation for them, but in reality right now our company said that it's not necessary for now, just percentage is necessary, just that's enough. So the percentage, you can see that this one's like percentage. So I have an order class. So order class is just all the one that handles the information about the discount, about the total without discount, or maybe everything about that. And items, so every item inside their cart is this one. Order price type, like retail price, wholesale price, client price. You can see in sales type, for example, you see that this model that I'm working right now, it has 4 different like states. The first one, invoice type, the first just simply the default one, I would say, because so you enter to the application when you want to make any sell, it loads like invoice type. So if you want to change any invoice, let's go and just check it out. For example, if you want to change this, it will be loaded like invoice edit. Why I did like this one, so I will show you later why. It's because of their repositories that should make a request to the data source, and data source will be loaded, like proper data source will be loaded, and this button, depending on the what kind of return invoice or what happened like here, will trigger. They will change their behaviors depending on these ones. So if I go and change the like this one, it will be like loaded like return edit. If I go and change like make a return, it will be loaded like this one from this one. So all the data, it's the architecture that I use, like clean architecture, controller, maybe you can use block. Data means the repositories, the models. I mean that every feature that I have here, almost they have the similar implementation, like controller, data, like this one. You see, customer payment repository, depending on the who is making the payment, it changes its behavior. I mean, so several type of repository implementation with the one interface. So let's go about our sales. The sales model is much more complicated than other features. I mean, other models, because it's make a lot of things. First of all, it has a configuration file. So it is the inherited widget. So whenever we load this section, so this is this one section. Let me run this in the macOS. It has much more convenient UI, I would say. So look, this module, when I go through this is a module, just information. When I click, I load that module with all necessary dependencies that I have, with all necessary things. For example, this client that I'm showing, it has another this is information about clients, and it has another, it's separated layer, it's separated, I mean feature. So depending on what I want, I will load this feature, and that's all. For example, if it has a pagination, like let's see, it's locally saved product, I will give them using SQLi like drift with pagination. So locally, but it looks locally. I am working. I also wanted to say that I worked with the performance as well. That is why there is no any janks here. So let's go and turn on the initialization applications. This one. So if I load here, so you see the janks are like not about, it's janks about 150. It can be rendered about in 2 milliseconds per frame, which means it's all about about at 120, between 60 and 120 FPS per second. I mean, so it's a lot of data like these ones also. Let me show you the first one, the loader, because of the Flutter team suggests us to, excuse me, Flutter team suggests us to use like profile mode in order to make how would say that, to see the performance. They suggest us to run our application profile mode rather than in debug, because debug mode has a lot of asserts, a lot of if checkers, a lot of things like optimizations. Profile mode have a lot of optimization. It runs in ahead of time, but it keeps some kind of Dart virtual machines things. I mean that no virtual machine, but debug like GIT completion code it has inside itself. So that is why, look, where is it? So if I do like something like this one, yeah, it's a little bit about 60 like this one, but I'm running in debug mode, so you have to know that it works much more better, much more faster than in profile mode. So what I wanted to say, what else I wanted to say, what I was talking about. So we have a sales module here. We have a configuration, and as I said that whenever I load this module, through this inherited widget, I will provide all the widgets, all the necessary widgets that I'm using there, with the necessary information. Like inherited widget passes the data down in a widget tree, down to the widget tree, like element tree. So this is the inherited widget that I use. It's poor Dart, I don't use all the packages necessary. It may be the reason of high how it says that, how a lot of megabytes you have to download in order to just, if you have a lot of packages, your application size will be increased as well. So I have a sales config state, and through the sales config state I provide this config widget state to the all the necessary things. So look, there's a timer, the dependencies, I will get the dependencies through the dependency scope, as I showed you previously in that initialization module. When I initialize all the dependencies, after that, whenever in the application, when I want to get those dependencies, I use like this one. I get that one, and all the dependencies are inside here already. So instead of them, I have to get the necessary controllers. I have to get sales controller that will work to save and get pending order. I have to create another controller that will deal with this one, like with this button, I mean, to make a request to the server. So look, it's another information here, some kind of comments here. You don't have to know about all of them, but after like going beyond this module, you have to remove and cancel all the unnecessary controllers in order to prevent memory leakages, memory leakages, excuse me. So look, there is a dependency initialization that I have. So I check the authentication listener. Why I'm checking authentication? It's because of that in our application there are several type of, if you know, several type of like platforms. It works like very good without any errors. Like it works in web very pretty fine. I would say, or excuse me, it works pretty fine on Windows. All the Dart VMs platforms, instead of just web. But when you are using a web, when you're navigating to the path, when you refresh your page, you have to somehow deal with the authentication. For example, even though your application is running, but it makes an authentication request to the server, just to get the current client, maybe current user, doesn't matter. But that is why all the time I have to, first of all, before loading to this application, I have to run this one first. It checks whether we are authenticated or not. That's all it does. So it checks once. If it doesn't work, I create a listener. Like all the time, even though if it works or not, I will create a listener that takes two controllers: settings controller and authentication. Like application has a settings controller that it has to get warehouses information, it has to get payment information, a lot of stuff it has. But it has an authentication too. Through this code, through this listenable, I listen to these controllers. Because of that, these controllers are even though the control package here, under the hood, it uses the block pattern, and it also has a change notifier. So that is why change notify, if you ever went deep dive, if you ever deep dive inside their listenable, or maybe all the stuff about listenables, you already maybe know that listenable can be merged. Change notifiers like value notifiers can be merged. They are all the listenables. That is why they can be merged. So after merging two and listening to their stuff, and whenever the notification like notify listeners when they work, this authentication listener will be worked, and I will listen every time when my application is authenticated state, and it will work only once. Just remember that it will only work once. That is why, depending on them, I will initialize all the necessary data here, like what kind of data controller should be worked, so I do all the stuff. I check whether user is not returning, is not editing the invoice. If the user is not editing, I will set a timer which will save my data, like all the data here, every 2 seconds. So it depends on how you loaded your module. If you loaded module properly, it's 3 seconds by default. But if you loaded somehow somewhere, it's let's check. By default, it's 3 seconds. Okay. So before going to this module, I close all the unnecessary information in order to prevent memory leakage, as I said. So I do also repository initialization. It's the main thing here. So it depending on the identity, if the identity was entered as a user or client, its behavior of our model changes depending on identity. So let's remove all these ones. I once checked them, I forgot to remove them. So if the user was entered as a user, it's the user initialization. So it loads data sources by them. I will show the data sources later. So if the user entered as a customer, it will load like something like this one. So only two necessary things is only two things are necessary here. It's the invoice tab, invoice edit. Because if the user entered as a customer, it means that it's the clients of specific manufacturer. Manufacturer provides, for example, oil, okay, and customer of that manufacturer says that I want specific amount of oil. Like, I don't know, maybe you call oil them or not. Oil just like eating that oil that can be not oil, not black oil. I mean the simple oil. So they want specific amount of products, and the manufacturer says that okay, I will deliver it. But when the customer entered as a user entered to the application as a customer, they can do only two things, like invoice type, so they can order or maybe change the order until the order is completed, you know. So user can do like return, edit, or also they can invoice edit, change the invoice, change the, like, make it anything. So that's the main configuration of my this one. So what is that? So there is a tablet. For example, if I make this one less than its usual, the how to say that the tablet version of the application will be loaded. So there's a tablet. If I do it less than its usual, it will there's a render flex overflowed. I will check it out later. Thank you very much. Did you see that? that we found that together, I mean. So there is a mobile UI. This is a tablet UI. This is a desktop UI. So there's a mobile, tablet, and desktop. And also I'm writing the logic. Let me show the logic. Just wait a second. So we have a, for example, if there is anything if there is anything like this one, the enter button will not work. But if it's clear and user, after selecting some specific amount of products, when he wants to finish his invoice, when he enters the enter, when he clicks the enter, this kind of pop-up will appear. So it works only on desktops right now, but I didn't write all the, how to say that, all the logic right now. So this cable listener, some kind of stuff, I didn't write all the necessary logic because it's like this one, like it's commented for now, because they said that we are implementing our application only for iOS application for now, then in the future we'll do that later. So that is why for now it's good. Like, okay, I have to remove the sound as well. So there is another controllers. Remember that the sales model have two type of controller. I used to say that my application uses two type of controllers, the two type of state machine. The first one is asynchronous most of the time. It makes requests, gets all the necessary thing that you have to deal with the synchronous code. But the second one is the synchronous state machine. You know, you have to collect them all the data through the synchronous state machine and provide that data to the another controller, which is a synchronous controller, and it makes me request and some kind of stuff. If you go and watch my previous videos, I will talk about the block, Flutter block, all the stuff that similar to that patterns that similar to the block, I mean. You can check there. So there's a sealed class. Some kind of their functions are not implemented only their children, like add product, increment, decrement. Also two type of things, like for example, if you have a sealed class with change notify, okay, which is synchronous. You can notify listeners with them. So we have a sales data controller. If you go and group for grouping here, you can see that there is a sales data controller. I mean, the final class means that you can't implement or extend this class out of this library, out of its library. Is why. So in this library, it's okay. So I have two type of controllers as well. They extend the sales controller, like this one, the main logic. All the necessary logic is inside, but some kind of logic like adding, product, incrementing, decrementing, they are in other classes. Like grouping sales data controller, grouping sales return data controller, their behaviors change depending on what user wants to do in the invoice section. So for example, if there's an add product for returning, user can add new products. So it's all about the solid principles, L, the letter L, the score substitution principles. It means that program should not understand whenever user changes its implementation. Like it should work without any, it should work as you want it. Like I don't know, if there is a solid principle, L means that whenever you change some specific implementation with Flutter, or what is that? The main logic should remain. So that's what I wanted. So two type of controllers. The first one is synchronous. This one, and this for the widgets. It works with the widgets all the time. So let's check. So that is what I wanted to show about the state machine and about the architecture that I have. So I said that I will show you the repositories here, for example, depending on the initialization, repository initialization. I said that I will show the data sources, this one. So we have a repository, just a repository, okay. Repository says that I will have a sales fulfillment data source, but I know that the only repository is enough here. I don't know why, but I have to change my code. Data sources are not necessary, because if you have any other data sources, if you have any local, maybe remote, or any other, I don't know, implementation that has 2-3 type of backends, you could write data sources. But because of that, I am only making server requests, which our backend is only like how to say that, it's only we have only one backend, so that is why repositories implementation would be enough. But right now I have several type of data sources. Data sources for the customer, so the logic changes depending on what the customer, for example, if identity was entered to the application as a customer, only to this implementation of data source will be loaded to him in order to he could like do whatever he wants. For example, order specific oil. Yeah. So there is a fulfillment customer creation data source implementation. For example, if user customer wants to create new invoice, like this one, the invoice will be sent as an order invoice. And the second one, when the customer wants to change its invoice, like ordered invoice, until the invoice is completed. So another one, as I showed you, that the logic of making a request changes depending on type of class. Okay. So the data source is here. Implementations are here, like for the customer, but for the user, it's several type of implementations, like 4 types of. If user enter to the application as a user and user wants to create new invoice, the logic will be due only for the user. User will not send as an order, it depends on if he checks if he wants to make an order or not. But for now, for user can only create one without ordering. it can update the order, excuse me, it can update the made invoice, that's whatever he's sold is it sold, yeah. Another implementation is for the returning when the user wants, for example, when the user goes here, оплатить, yeah, when he wants to pay something, it's about the quantity. Let's check. Let's select another product. What we have here. Yeah. So, for example, I did two type of products. I will select our client. If we go to our, for example, where's the amount of is it our, yeah, that's our thing. So we made like this one. So depending on the logic, for example, as I showed data controllers, if user changing or maybe creating invoice, he can add new products. If he's returning, he can add new products. He only can change, or maybe he only can return, and depending on the return and the logic of this, depending on this one, our logic of our application changes the behavior. So if we want to return something, this repository, the data source will work. If we want update our return, this data source will work. If we want update just the made invoice without any changing or returning, without any making a return or making it like this one here, and this one just for creation. Like, let me check. For example, if I want to return something, this one will work here, this one will work. So if we go and change our recently made, like this one, when I make a change here, okay, something like change, when I want to change here, these ones after changing here will work. So depends on what user wants. For example, if I go and change something, add new products, okay, this implementation will work. Let's check it out. So if I go and create new one, so this one work at right now. So that's what I wanted to show you. And last but not least, what I wanted, the most important thing in our application is the synchronization. Let me explain you one thing. So in our application, there are several type of synchronization. There are a lot of type of synchronization. If I go and check our application to their memory, let's check. What happened? I don't like it, the way it's working. I don't give a single why it's not working. Why the hell it's not working? performance. Let's see the performance. I wanted to show you the memory usage. So it's okay, yeah. Go to the cell system. It increased. You see a little bit the memory of our application increase. If I close that, it should decrease. You see, it's this here. It increased somewhere here. Somewhere here, it went down. So what I was talking about the synchronization. Fine. My class, how class. Oh, okay, like these ones. I have several type of synchronization. I have storage sync controller. I have a user sync controller. User sync, I guess the user sync is not usable. Okay, I have a storage sync. I have a product sync, customer sync, category sync, all the necessary data. So what I wanted to show you in my application, if I go to the product sync, I have a readme file here. It's what it says, and every person who will work with my project in the future, they will understand why my specific feature, how it works under the hood, and what it does. That's what it does, especially, yeah. So if you read this one, the main isolation, let's go. I just wanted to show you that my application have several type of synchronization. First one, second one, but not last, but this is third synchronization. Let's check that every module has their own synchronization. Okay, so this is, what is that? Dun, 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 dun. So it is the products sync controller. So there is a categories sync controller dot. So there is a storage sync controller. Let's imagine that every module has its own type of synchronization. For example, in our company we have we have to get products, categories, or maybe storage synchronization. It means that you have to get the copy of your database and put that copy right inside your local databases. So that is why. What I wanted to say about that. So it means that every feature of synchronization is separated because of that. Maybe if one of them fails, if one of these feature fails, it will not be the reason of failing other features, other synchronizations. So product sync control makes all the synchronization all the time, every 10 minutes, 15 minutes, doesn't matter, if you set up the necessary settings yourself. So it makes its own synchronization, like it sees that if there is any new data in a remote database, it will sync local database with remote one. So this is storage synchronization. Also gets the storage quantities of the products and makes a synchronization all the time. Category syncs also the feature that makes takes to the server and makes its own. So I mean that every feature is separated, and all of them are, I mean, isolated from each other. So if you go and read all of the necessary information that I wrote, it means that why async features are separated. Like why are sync features separated? And you might wonder why its sync feature categories, products, customers is implemented. They implemented separately instead of having one single unified synchronization. So maybe I would have only one last updated add feature, like last updated add, which I save in shared preferences. But every feature that I have here have their own last updated add. I mean, like product last updated add, categories last updated add. So what they do? So separating features do independent data structure. Each feature maintains its own schema and last updated adds time step, preventing tight coupling between unrelated data. Fault isolation: if one sync fails, products or maybe categories customers continue working normally. Other features, if one of the products will fail, categories and customers, like also I have a customer synchronization, will continue working normally. So each feature can be synced independently based on its own update frequency requirements. For example, you have a button on a specific page. You have to show all the products in that screen, okay? And you want to synchronize only one product, not the customers. Customers have their own time for synchronization. For example, you set up the time like 10 minutes. Every 10 minutes, your application will synchronize with server. So if you have only one page that should be synced only once, or the only specific thing, it will sync only one product. And user debugging. So I mean that it can be debugged and look, just see what goes wrong. So most of the time, all the features they look like similar one. So I have two type of data sources depending on their thing. I have this type of data sources here, models. So I have a converter here. For example, a lot of people, if they have a product table, or maybe what is that, product class, all the implementation like to JSON, from JSON, they write that code right inside the product class. But instead of that, you can create a converter, so that converts your code from specific type of, I don't know, maybe from JSON, from not JSON. Let's see. So for example, there's a from JSON. You can create in another like converter, not to table, from JSON converter, and do like something like this one. So that is the features that I have, and there's a sync button. I will send a single type of listener, for example, products, what I want to synchronize. For example, if I want to synchronize all, I will call this logic, and it synchronizes for me all the data. For example, if it goes through all the necessary things, and it checks all the necessary data. So synchronize button, just a button that depending on the sync button logic synchronize my code. So let me show. For example, there is a refresh button. When I click that, it refreshes. So what I wanted to say, this is all the necessary thing that I'm working right now. In my company said that you don't have to show all the code. That is why whatever I wanted to show you, I showed you. Whatever is necessary about the architecture that I use, depending on the word architecture I use here, you can follow me. Just remember that you don't have to follow all the I don't know, bloggers that they haven't spent enough time in order to learn how it works properly. So you can follow these all of type of, and exactly I just recommend you. I don't know, I can say to you that you can be sure 100% about that. Using this kind of architecture, you will not be lost in the middle of the road. So if you're writing a bad code, there's a lot of burnouts, I would say. That is why I've been in this kind of situation before. I went through this kind of burnouts. That is why I suggest you to just do not follow all this unnecessary thing. And also I wanted to show you that most of the times, the last thing I want to show you, that a lot of people use this one. People use this one. Flutter.env. So it works everywhere. They said that even in the web, but when the compilation works, when the obfuscation works, all the necessary things. But remember that obfuscation will not deal with the strings, like type of the string all the time. So that is why you have to remember that obfuscation will not obfuscate your code, obfuscate your strings all the time. So but Flutter.env, it's not about the web. It's the last necessary thing that I wanted to show you. You have to remember, you have to use this kind of env or maybe even JSONs. For example, it's the testing one. You have a specific data, okay? You have a specific data. For example, you have some kind of URL here. For example, json.com, okay? Base URL of the backend site that you can make requests and get data. So you have a specific data, you can set up, configure your necessary data here, and then go. I have a constants config here, and through them I will get the data. For example, base URL, it's a test URL, just a test URL, and depending on key, for example, from using like string from environment, bool from environment, integer from environment, like this one. Using this one, you can get like base URL. For example, if you're in a config side, you are getting like using this key, you can get one. But remember that how you can get this. You can get those ones. So I have just a little bit info. So you can do, in order to hide, maybe if you have a GitHub and you don't want to I don't know, push your code, push your specific necessary tokens, something to the GitHub, you can create like something like this one and provide your data directly to your GitHub actions somewhere. So doing by this one, you will prevent unnecessary showing your tokens or maybe everything you want in a website, because website you can type in F12 and it will show the development necessary things. All the necessary thing will not be like exposed, I mean, so that is why if you use this env, your web can't hide all your tokens, so env will be visible all the time there. So using this kind of JSON and using this config like everywhere you want, so from the bool environment, so what you can do, all the time when you want to run your application, you have to run like this one, or release where you want, whatever you want, or maybe build a bundle, okay, or APK. So you have to run Flutter run and your code dart define dart define from file, and the path. For example, there is a development JSON. I will not show you this one. So if you test one, you will write not instead of development, you write test. So let's go. It will say what kind of thing you will choose in order to run your application. It's running on iOS. So by default, I just set up all necessary configuration in my Android Studio in order to not write the dart define all the time. So I did similar to this one to my Android Studio settings. So just by clicking this button, it could run with that argument. So it's like this one, you know, all the necessary things are here. So that is what I wanted to tell you, to show you. Thank you exactly for your attention. That is why maybe I wish that you have learned something from my project. So if you have something to say, just comment in a comment section. I will read them, and I will provide all the necessary information and all the necessary articles that you could see, read, and follow proper, I would say, bloggers, proper people, programmers, engineers, excuse me. So that is why. Thank you for your attention. See you next time.